I proceed, let me acknowledge the presence of Senator Amy Marcos, who is our suke for this committee. And let me also direct the committee secretary to acknowledge our resource persons for today.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. For the public hearing on Senate Bill number 150, or the Academic Recovery and Accessible Learning, or ARAL Program Act, we would like to acknowledge the virtual presence of our resource persons from the Department of Education, DepEd Information and Communications Technology Service, Ms. Encarnacion T. Escuadro, and Mr. Miguel Carlos C. Macariola. From the DepEd NCR Regional Office, Ms. Jennifer Vivas, the Chief Education Program Supervisor. From the Commission on Higher Education, we would like to acknowledge Ms. Cynthia Q. Hernandez, Chief of the Office of Student Development and Services, and Mr. Eugene Garcia, Senior Education Program Specialist. From the Department of Budget and Management, we would like to acknowledge Mr. Paul Vincent Perocho, the OIC Chief Budget and Management Specialist, and Ms. Ruby Ann Anonuevo, Supervising Budget and Management Specialist. From the Department of Information and Communications Technology, or DICT, we have Director Maria Teresa M. Garcia, Director 4 of the ICT Literacy and Competency Development Bureau. From the Department of the Interior and Local Government, or DILG, we are here with Attorney Cynthia F. Loriano Polido, Chief Legal Research Assistance and Legislative Liaison Service. From the National Economic and Development Authority, or NEDA, we have Director Girly Casimiro Igtiben, Director 4 of the Social Development Staff, and Ms. Yuko Lisette Domingo, Supervising Economic Development Specialist. From the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, we have Dr. Maria Cristina F. Epetia, Research Fellow. We are still waiting for the presence of the United Nations Children's Fund, or Unicef, Mr. Nicolas Tenazas. And last but not the least, from the Philippine Educational Measurement and Evaluation Association, or PIMEA, we have Dr. Marilyn U. Balagtas, the Chairman and President, together with Mr. Alejandro S. Ibanez and Ms. Marie Antoinette C. Alino. That's it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Comsec. Thank you for that. Once again, magandang umaga po sa lahat. Good morning to everyone. Today we'll be tackling Senate Bill number 150, and the title of this bill is Academic Recovery and Accessible Learning Program, ARAL for short. And this is filed by yours truly. The long title of this bill is an act establishing an academic recovery and accessible learning program, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes. And the objective of this bill is to implement academic recovery in light of the pandemic. We all know that our schools were closed for about 2 years, and those 2 years contributed or exacerbated the conditions of our education system in our public schools particularly. I think all of the education stakeholders very well know that prior to the pandemic, we were already struggling in terms of academic performance. If you recall, in 2018, the country took PISA, and we were last in reading, second to the last math and science. And let me just flash the slide of that. And just to remind everyone that in 2018, this is actually a wake-up call for everyone. It was a rude awakening, but nevertheless, we took this as a challenge and filed several key reform legislation to address the academic performance of our learners. And then the pandemic struck in 2020. And all experts are in agreement that the pandemic exacerbated this situation. In fact, in the latest World Bank report on learning poverty, 9 out of 10 10-year-olds in our country cannot read and understand the simple story. So comprehension has become worse during the pandemic. So, and we all know as education experts and stakeholders that if a child will have problems and struggle with their studies, the tendency of the child is to drop out. And if the child will drop out, definitely the quality of job and the quality of employment of the child will deteriorate, and contribution to society and the economy will also deteriorate. So there are adverse long-term effects of schools closures and adverse long-term effects of poor learner performance. And I'm very happy to note that NEDA is here to share light or to shed light on the economic contribution or the lack thereof of students who perform poorly. So with that preamble, we filed a bill, and this bill, as stated in the title, the aim of this bill is academic recovery by instituting tutoring programs, remedial programs, expanding and using college students to be deployed to implement those tutoring programs and academic recovery programs. We all know that budget is also an important facet of this bill. That's why we invited DepEd DBM to participate, to also give us some comments on the budgetary requirement. And we're very fortunate that we're joined by no less than one of the most active senators this 19th Congress. We're joined by Senator Robin Padilla. Good morning, sir. Welcome.
Magandang umaga po, mahal na tagapangulo.
Magandang umaga po. And with that, we're now going into the meat of this discussion. But before that, let me ask Senator Robin if he has any opening statements.
Wala naman po muna, mahal na tagapangulo. Ako po'y makikinig muna po sa inyong pagdinig.
Right. Maraming salamat, Senator Robin. So we now go into the meat of the discussion on academic recovery. But before I call on the resource persons, meron akong simpleng tanong sa lahat. No? Kailangan ba natin itong bill na ito? Is this bill required as of this point, or is this just a waste of time to discuss? Is academic recovery necessary at this point? I think this is the most important question to ask everyone. And before we can ask that question, we also need to determine if we measured learner performance and learner outcomes, especially in the last 2 years. Because we can never answer that question if we haven't measured learner outcomes in the last 2 years. So my first question will revolve around assessments. How far and what has DepEd done in terms of learner assessments in the last 2 years? I know it was very challenging. Hindi ho madali dahil may pandemya, lahat nag-aaral ho sa bahay. So I just want to ask DepEd first, what assessments have they conducted? What are the results of those assessments? And after discussing the assessments, then we will know whether this bill is needed or not. No? Because the assessments will point us to the right direction. So I call on, first on the list will be the Department of Education. And before you comment on the bill, let's talk about assessments first. I know that you have released several guidelines on remedial classes, on enrichment classes, but those guidelines were probably based on some form of assessment. So we want to discuss assessments first, so everyone will be on the same page when it comes to learner outcomes. So we call on sinong tatawagin ko? But this is ICT ito eh. On assessment. The ComSec is telling me to call on the ICT, but I don't think the ICT will know about assessment. So we'll call on DepEd Legislative Affairs, Attorney Cedric Enriquez, or DepEd NCR, represented by Miss Jennifer Vivas. Anyone of you can respond to the question of assessment. So we'll be guided accordingly. All right. So we call on DepEd to discuss about what have you done, and what assessments have you conducted in the last 2 years. Miss Vivas.
Good morning, Your Honor. Can I be heard? Good morning. So during the pandemic years, I can speak for the National Capital Region because I am the representative of Director Wilfredo E. Cabral. We have this local assessment called the Learning Assurance Monitoring for Progress. And we have seen that using the SOLO framework, and we have seen that our learners, a big percentage of our learners are not reaching the proficiency level, particularly when they reach higher grades as they progress. And because we are also working on the learning continuity and recovery plan through the help of the USAID, we use the Comprehensive Rapid Literacy Assessment, or the CRLA. This one is a standards tool that we use for our Key Stage 1 learners. And for the information of everybody, the result is truly affirming the state of the children in NCR alone, even prior to the pandemic, because out of the 388,000 learners in Key Stage 1 learners in grades 1 to 3, we found that we have about 49,636 learners who are not able to recognize the letters presented to them using the standard tool from the ABC Plus of the USAID. And that moved our regional director and the rest of the education leaders in the National Capital Region to enhanced our learning continuity plan, which is now called Learning Continuity and Recovery Plan. Also, we did an assessment on the numeracy of our Key Stage 1 learners. We used we urgently need a standard tool, so we borrowed a tool from the Albay, SDO Albay, which is also a beneficiary of the USAID. So we used the ALNAT numeracy tool. We contextualized it for the region. And we also found that there are 59 out of the 130,296 Key Stage 1 learners, there are 59,112 learners that needs major support. And for key stages 2 to 4, we have local assessments conducted by our division offices. And we also found similar situation. That is why in the learning continuity and recovery plan that we have only identified three key priority areas. That is delivery of quality instruction and performance of learners. And also the second one is to support our teachers so that they can provide the needed support of our learners. And of course, just like what Senator said, the last one is the budget for accelerating instruction. Because we have this baseline data and we found that we really have problems and we know where problems are happening, particularly so we prioritize our Key Stage 1 learners because these are the learners who have not experienced in-person teaching. They have not had that face-to-face engagement with their teachers. So that's the priority that we are working on right now. Currently, because we already launched our learning continuity and recovery plan, the interventions identified by the division are happening, but majority of our divisions said that they will do it for 3 years and they prioritize what they can do for the first year. That's all, and thank you, Your Honor.
Ma'am, let's break it down one by one, no? Because it's very difficult to discuss numbers without a PowerPoint presentation. It's very difficult to follow. So let's break it down one by one. You mentioned an assessment. Meron kayong nabanggit na assessment. What's that first assessment?
The first assessment is the initiative of our regional director, that is the learning assurance monitoring for progress. So we use the SOLO framework. It measures understanding of learners on the most essential learning competencies identified. And our findings show that as learners progress in higher grades, particularly in science, the performance of learners are dropping. So that gives us a picture that we really need to address this. So this was during the pandemic year in 2020, 2021. And just recently, sir, we used because it does not include the key stage 1 learners, the grades 1 to 3. So we borrowed a tool given to us by the USAID through the ABC Plus program. We borrowed the comprehensive rapid literacy assessment. So this
Ma'am Rivas, let's discuss first this learner assurance for progress.
yes, sir.
Tama ba? Learning assurance for
Learning assurance monitoring for progress.
Okay.
And
Let's start with this. Discuss with us in detail the results. Kasi you mentioned that as the learner progresses, the the absorption or the understanding decreases. Is that correct?
yes, sir.
Do
So
we have a number that will show, for example, how many learners are actually regressing as they progress, regressing as they go up to the next grade level?
sir, I can share later. But the solo framework basically measures the understanding of learners in concept. There are the pre-structural, meaning to say uh, they have no understanding at all. The unistructural, meaning they only understand one idea. And multi-structural, perhaps if you say about traffic in EDSA, the learner could say a few things, but multi-structural, these are not related. So the highest level of measure we use there is the relational, meaning the learner can relate the concept with other things happening in his surroundings. So we have data on this, sir, and I can share in a while after I give the big picture. So what we found is that particularly in senior high school, as they progress, their scores in the relational are dropping. So meaning to say they are not understanding the concept in that big picture. So
So
they are not proficient.
so anong grade level po ang na-assess itong learning
Sir,
assessment?
all excluding the key stage 1, beginning grade 6, these are exit assessment grade 6, grade 10, and grade 12
Okay.
alone.
All right. Let's discuss grade 6, okay? And let's discuss one grade level first, grade 6. And you said the lowest a grade 6 learner can get is no understanding, tama po ba?
Actually, the pre-structural, yes, sir. But we have
Ano yung
no
low?
result. The lowest is pre-structural, but not proficient because they measured it using the Bloom's taxonomy. But sir, honestly, this time, DepEd NCR will undergo a program in partnership with PNU and University of New England to be better because the tool also we borrowed from Region 4A. So that is why we really need to make our own tool. To develop our own tool using that solo framework. And because we saw that we also need to capacitate ourselves, we partnered with ABC Plus. And
I
that's
just
what
want
we
to discuss
found.
first itong learning assessment monitoring for progress. Ano po ang possible grade o ang possible level makukuha ng isang grade 6?
Actually, sir, it's descriptive. It's either
Okay.
proficient or not proficient.
How many are not proficient among the grade 6 learners?
Um, I do not have, sir, the
We will
actual.
understand. No? But I need the number. Kailangan ho namin ma-visualize. How many grade 6 are not proficient? Or how many grade 6 did not meet the lowest or the minimum proficiency level? Yun na lang.
Okay. Um,
Do you have that number?
Yes, I have that number, but it's not with me right now, so I can share it
How about for
later,
the
sir.
other grade levels? Do you have
I just have all the results of the lamp, sir. We do have, but on the big picture, I was not told that I need to bring the lamp result. I have the CRLA result with me right now. What we found is a trend. What I'm sharing with you is the trend that we see that as they progress in higher grade, particularly in science, mathematics, and English, and we see that in senior high school, the percentage of learners who are not proficient is increasing.
You can prepare that, and then later we can
Yes,
discuss it here
sir.
in the hearing. It's good to put that on record, no, because the basis for this bill is those results. No, so we want to put it on record that our students are not learning or they are regressing as they go up the next grade level, and we want to put that on record. That's the whole point of this bill. That's why we're here. No, to address those results. No, let's go to the other assessment tool that you use, the comprehensive rapid literacy assessment. No? Just
Yes.
discuss with that the results of those and make it as layman, as simple as possible, Ma'am Viva, so
Okay, sir.
everyone will understand. Ang gusto lang naman namin malaman are the students learning. No?
Yes, sir.
And using those assessment tools, what have you discovered?
So, we use the comprehensive rapid literacy assessment. Ito po ay para sa mga grade 1 and grade 1 to 3 learners natin na nasa National Capital Region. So, our learners, the number of learners participated 388,215, and 126,887 are grade 1, 124,287 are grade 2, and 136,941 are grade 3. And what we found is that these learners, we have 49,000 learners who cannot read. Meaning to say, hindi po nila kayang ma-recognize yung mga words na ipinapakita sa kanila using the tool from the USAID ABC Plus. And we call them as full refreshers because we do not want to call them non-readers. So the tool calls it full refreshers. And these learners we identified are the ones who had not experienced yung in-person learning. Nag-aral lang sila remotely during the pandemic. That is why they were prioritized in the crafting of our learning continuity and recovery plan. So likewise, sa numeracy assessment naman po ng ating Key Stage 1 learners, Senator, nakita din po natin that sa out of 130,296, meron po tayong 59,112 learners that needs major support. Ibig sabihin, even the use of the fundamental mathematics operation ay hirap yung ating mga bata. And that is why this becomes the basis of our intervention across the National Capital Region. And we can also share with you the result of this CRLA and the numeracy assessment.
So, ma'am, let's break it down again. No? This is nationwide.
This is only,
assessment?
sir, for the National Capital Region.
Okay, for the
For
National Capital
NCR.
Region. Okay, so NCR, and then what you are saying, I think I have some, that 49,000 students cannot read in NCR.
Yes, sir.
Out of
Yes,
how many
sir.
students?
Out of the tested 388,215.
388,000. So that's about
200, yes.
and then in terms of the other one is math, you said?
In mathematics, sir, we tested 130,296 and
Ilang 40 million.
59,112 are needing major support.
Okay. So do you think this is a national trend?
Sir, I cannot speak for the rest of the regions, but we have heard also that in other regions when they reported, they do have learning losses, and because other regions also have their own learning continuity and recovery plan, they may have a very concrete data on their assessments.
So, ma'am, those who cannot read, that's about 12%, tama ba,
Yes,
of the
sir. Apo.
total students who were tested, and those who need major support in math, meaning I would assume they cannot count. No?
Yes, sir.
That's about 30%. Is that correct?
Sir, yes sir. Ang basis po natin sir, dun muna sir sa sa literacy. We use grade level. Ang benchmark nun ay grade level materials. Meaning to say sa grade 1 yung dapat na identify ng grade 1, they are not able to do that. And likewise in numeracy, ganun din po what we expect that our learners in those grade level should have knowledge or should have competence. They are not achieving that. So to give you sir the percentage for grade 1, 16.39% of our grade 1 learners in NCR are under full refresher, but in grade 2, 12.91% are full refreshers, and while in grade 3 we have about because grade 3 they are already reading English and Tagalog, so in Tagalog 5.46 and 2.91. So the trend that we saw is that as they progress to grade level, the percentage of learners who are full refresher is becoming slimmer. But it's different in mathematics. As they progress to higher grade level, the percentage is bigger because yung competencies natin sa DepEd is spiraling. It's becoming difficult as they progress to higher grade level. So our initial insights on that is that we need to really the project ARAL is very important, sir, to support our learning continuity and recovery plan, because we said that we need to help our learners who are in the lower grade and also provide advanced tutoring in order for them to cope up with the next grade level.
Ma'am, doon sa mathematics, the ones you mentioned, 59,000 out of how many?
Out of 130,296
So that's about 50%.
learners tested, sir. Yes, sir.
So in if my numbers are right, no, 16% of our learners from kindergarten to grade 3 cannot read.
Sir, excluding kindergarten, only
Oh,
we
grade
only tested grade 1 to 3.
3. So
Yes, sir.
16% of our students.
16%. Yes, sir.
And then 50% of our students from grade 1 to grade 3 cannot count.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, and because of these numbers, you see the need to institutionalize a remedial, a recovery program, an academic
Yes, sir.
recovery program. Thank you, ma'am. And I want to show also,
Thank you,
ma'am,
sir.
ito NCR to, no? And NCR
National
is
Capital Region.
supposed to be well funded, well attended by more teachers. But we also got numbers from Region 5, no? On the same assessment tool that was used. No? And let me just flash on the screen. And I don't know, ma'am, if you can comment on this, but in Region 5, 66% of grade 1 cannot read. In grade 2, 52% cannot read. And in grade 3, 18% cannot read. Using the same tool, Comprehensive Rapid Literacy Assessment, only a different region, Region 5, which is the Bicol region, no? Region of Senator Robin Padilla. So, my case in point, my point here is, sa urban centers na ho, malala na yung sitwasyon, but in the rural areas, obviously ho, mas malala pa yung sitwasyon because of logistical and funding issues. No? So, I don't have the math, no. DepEd didn't send us the math numbers, but I would assume it's also going to be much worse than the NCR number. So, ma'am, can you comment on this if you know these numbers, if you're familiar with these numbers?
Sir, that is the reason why, sir. Actually, Region 5 is a beneficiary of the USAID. NCR, we just wrote a letter to Dr. Thomas LeBlanc so that they can lend us the tools and give us the consultancy support. NCR is not a beneficiary of USAID because in Albay, they said, sir, our consultant said that because there are if there are people from Albay here because they have different dialects, they have different kaya mas laki po makikita ninyo yung full refresher sa kanila. That's why sila yung binigyan ng support ng USAID. While NCR yung sa NCR naman wala naman tayong Tagalog naman ang ginagamit, still sir, meron pa din tayong full refresher. What we found out during our community visit is because merong impact po yung when learners studied remotely, and we call nanay, tatay, or mga kapatid na nag-aalaga as learning facilitators. Iba pa din po kasi yung nasa class sila. So, we conducted several focus group discussion para kumustahin yung aming learners. Ito po yung aming natututunan, nalalaman sa kanila that those learners na wala silang parents na gumagabay sa kanila sa pag-aaral are finding it hard. So yun po sir yung paliwanag nila bakit ang Region 5 ay beneficiary ng USAID kasi malaki nga po sir, they have bigger percentage of non-readers or full refreshers in the region. But we said even if we are NCR, we also need some support from the USAID, even consultancy lang, and lending us the tools because nabigla naman po, wala po tayong standard tool. We're still in the process of strengthening our assessment practice and developing our standard tool in NCR in partnership with the PNU. So yun lang po, Senator, ang mai-share ko about.
Yeah, just to put on record, Ma'am Vivas, no, that 66% in mother tongue, that's an equivalent of 80,000 students. Yung grade 2, Filipino subject, that 52% is 69,000 students. And yung English, no, for grade 3 is 26,000 students, no. And in my opinion, a student who cannot read, kahit na isa yan, problema ho yan ng bansa.
Yes, sir. That's right.
So leave no child behind.
Yes, sir.
One non-reader student is a problem of the entire country, no. So but in this particular case, we're talking about thousands, even in their own mother tongue. No, even in their own mother tongue, they cannot read and understand. No, more so when it comes to the other subjects like English. In NCR po, I'll show you the same slide. I think this was mentioned earlier. Ito yata yung na-mention nyo, no? And this was data coming from DepEd. 16% cannot understand in their mother tongue. 12% cannot understand in Filipino, and then 2% in English. But I think when you average all of this, kasi iba-ibang grade level to, will be 16%. Is that correct?
Different percentages for different grade levels, sir. Yung grade 3 natin, much lower percentage, just like what I mentioned kanina, nasa 5% something yung yung ating 5.40% yung ating grade 3, and 2.91 sa English yung ating grade 3 English. So in grade 1, sir, nandoon ang bulk of higher percentage. So in grade 1, we have 16.39% who are full refreshers or non-readers, and 12.91 in grade 2 ang ating full refreshers.
So in short, ma'am, in short, just to just to summarize the results of this comprehensive rapid literacy assessment. And correct me if I'm wrong, no, but just want to put this on record that in so far as reading in English is concerned, 49,000 students cannot read.
Yes, sir. 49,000 students. 49,636 in Key Stage 1.
In Key
Grade
Stage
1 to
1.
3. Yes,
Grade
sir.
1 to 3. And
Are full refreshers
okay,
or
and
non-readers.
in mathematics, in math, 59,000 cannot
Yes.
count. No?
Numeracy. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Mayroon kang ano? Any comment?
Mahal na tagapangulo, pwede po bang ano lang?
Yes,
Opo.
Senator Robin.
Gusto ko lamang pong tanungin yung atin pong bisita na si Ma'am Jennifer Vivas. Kanina po kasi sa unang salgada, sinabi kaagad po ni Ma'am na naka-apekto ang pandemic. Ngayon, sa pakikinig ko po, yung mga grade 3 ay hindi marunong magbasa. Nahihirapan. 50,000 po yata. Tama po ba?
Magandang
Tama po
umaga
ba,
po,
Ma'am Jennifer?
Senator. Sa grade 3 po natin, meron tayong, kasi yung CRLA po, meron na silang English na ginamit. Kasi yung grade 1 natin,
Opo.
Tagalog
Ano po
po.
ibig sabihin?
Sa
Opo.
grade 3
Hindi po
po,
marunong
sir,
magbasa ng English yung 50,000.
yung 49,636 po, Senator, ay combined na yon ng grade 1, 2, and 3. So sa grade, sa grade 3 po natin, 5.46% po ang contribution ng ating grade 3 na hindi nakakabasa or full refresher po. Na ginamitan po namin ng CRLA tool na bigay po ng USAID ABC Plus.
Yung sa hindi marunong mag-math sa grade 3, ilan porsyento din po yun?
Sa grade 3, sir, meron tayong tinest na 45,253, no? Ang needs major support, ito naman po ay hindi marunong meron silang competency na tinest. 24,000 po ang ibig sabihin needs major support para magawa nila yung mathematical operations. 24,468 po sa grade 3 ang kailangan ng major support. Ibig sabihin on their own hindi po nila kayang ganapin yung mga competency na yon ng mathematics na grade 3.
Opo. Yun po yung ibig kong sabihin eh. Parang ang pandemic po kasi may 2 taon lang yan sa atin eh. May 2 taon, ano? So, ibig sabihin, nag-grade 1 yung mga yan. Kung nag-grade 1 yan, dapat, nung nag-grade 1 sila, wala pang pandemic noon, marunong na silang bumasa kahit paano ng English, at marunong na rin po siguro sila kahit paano mag 1+1, ano? Ibig ko lang po sabihin, hindi po kaya talagang may problema na tayo sa edukasyon, hindi po kaya parang ganon. Ibig ko pong sabihin baka masyadong tinuturo natin yung pandemic. Alam naman po natin na mahirap talaga yung hindi mo kaharap ang teacher mo. Pero matagal din po akong tumira sa Australia at doon po kasi hindi mo rin kaharap yung sa malalayong lugar po, ano? Wala din pong teacher, radyo lang. Radyo lang po, wala pa kasing internet nung nakatira ako doon. Radyo lang, nag-aaral yung mga aboriginal sa radyo. Pero natuto sila. Talagang ako po ay saksi po ako diyan, ano. Ibig ko pong imungkahi lang, ma'am. Naniniwala po ako dito sa bill na ito, ano. Dapat po talaga na meron talaga tayong recovery, ano. Ang gusto ko lang pong ipunto, nakalagay po kasi dito appropriating funds. At nadinig ko din po ang mahal na tagapangulo sa kanyang interview, kung meron po sigurong dapat na bigyan ng pondo ay yung pagtaas. Nadinig ko po ang sinabi ng tagapangulo ay yung pagtaas ng sweldo ng mga teacher, ano, kung meron pong prioridad. Ano, sa akin pong palagay, ang karunungan, kaalaman, ang knowledge ay magmumula sa teacher. Kung magaling ang teacher, kahit nakaharap mo yan o hindi mo kaharap, kung internet man yan o module man yan, basta magaling ang teacher, naniniwala po ako, ma'am, na matututo ang estudyante. At ang bilang panghuling paalala ko po, kasi sandali pa lang po ako dito sa Senado, laging nasisisi yung pandemic. Lahat po ng inattendang kong committee, laging sapul lahat, murdered yung pandemic. Yung akin lang po sanang mungkahi, sana meron o walang pandemic, meron mang krisis o wala, yung sana po yung tinatawag po natin na kagalingan ng ating mga estudyante ay mailabas po natin. Dahil naniniwala po talaga ako na talagang ang ating pong mga Pilipino na mga estudyante matatalino at sila po ay magagaling. At yan po ay napatunayan na sa kasaysayan pa lang po ng bayang Pilipinas na nag-aaral pa sa ilalim ng puno ang ating mga estudyante. Ang nanay ko po, isa na dyan. Ang lolo ko, ang tatay ko, mga taga ano po yan, na malalayong lugar. Dahil po sa magaling, kanilang teacher, sila po ay naging maganda ang kinabukasan. Sa akin pong palagay, ma'am, sana sentrohan po natin yung sinasabi po ng mahal na tagapangulo na si Senator Win Gatchalian. Narinig ko po siya sinabi niya talaga na bigyan natin ng prioridad yung mga teacher. Maraming salamat po, Ma'am Jennifer Vivas.
Salamat po, Senator Robin. Oo nga po, tama po yung sinabi ninyo na even prior to the pandemic, kagaya po ng sinasabi ng mahal na Senator Win, na meron na tayong challenge sa education na even more, na-aggravate pa siya, na-worsen pa siya. At ang kagandahan po nung nangyari sa pandemic, mas nakita natin, ngayon nag-streamline tayo, nakita natin ano yung dapat nating mas tutukan. Naging opportunity naman po ito for collaboration. At ito nga pong Project ARAL, ako din po nung nakita ko po ito, naniniwala po ako na ito po ay makakasustain. Kasi ang mga regions naman po, kagaya po ng NCR, meron siyang Learning Continuity and Recovery Plan. The Project ARAL, the ARAL program can help us sustain this program. Kasi nga po, syempre, ang mga guro natin ay madami na silang ginagawa. So makakatulong po ito kung meron tayong mga additional teachers and para-teachers to help. Salamat po, sir.
Maraming salamat po, Ma'am Jennifer. Ako po ay sanay po din akong makarating sa malalayong lugar kasi medyo na-shock din po ako na nasa NCR mismo, ganun yung mga figures na nakita ko. Wow, paano pa sa malalayong lugar na talagang alam naman po natin pagdating sa malayong lugar medyo mas may problema doon. Ang tanong ko lang po meron pong ito nakita ko lang po ito sa Isabela City, sa Basilan. Malayo po 'yan Nagkaroon din po sila doon sa mga cable nila. Nagpapalabas po sila ng mga parang paaralan. Kung ano yung mga lecture sa paaralan. Kasi alam naman po natin sa malalayong lugar, TV, cable ang gumagamit. Wala po silang internet medyo malungkot pagdating sa internet, pagdating sa malalayong lugar, hindi naman po sila kuha ng magandang cell site Ang tanong ko lang po ba, meron po ba tayo ding ganung klase na programa na magamit din po natin yung hilig ng mga bata na manood ng TV na makapaglagay din po tayo ng sa malalayong lugar na mga palabas na hindi naman nakakaabot po yung mga teacher natin. Kasi meron pong ipinakita din po noong last hearing po namin ng ating mahal na tagapangulo, Senator Win Gatchalian, sapul na sapul po yung BAM. Rin po, bagabag yung sitwasyon po sa BAM. Ang akin pong palagay, baka po pwede doon makatulong yung mga cable. Kasi meron po mga lugar din na alam naman po natin na hindi lang delikado, kundi mahirap puntahan. Pero nakakaabot yung TV. Opo, baka po may ganun kayong programa, masilip din niyo po yung sa Isabela City at napakaganda po nung kanilang programa na lumalabas po sa cable.
Opo. Thank you, Senator Robin, for asking that. Maikwento ko po na ang DepEd NCR po ay may current partnership with Solar Entertainment. Nung panahon pa ng pandemic, na ang mga bata ay nag-aaral ng remote, isa po sa pinagkakaabalahan po ng regional office kasama yung ating technical team, ito po ay mga guro. Nagpo-produce po tayo ng TV-based instruction na based sa mga most essential learning competencies. Ang ginagawa po ng NCR ay yung mga hindi po na-develop na lessons ng ating central office. So ang DepEd NCR po ay gumagawa ng lesson at para inclusive nga po yung aming na-develop na TV lesson, for example sa science, meron siyang interpreter para dun sa mga bata naman na mga deaf. Dahil po talaga sa pandemic, sir, marami po namang innovation na nagawa at naganap po sa DepEd NCR alone. Kaya po dun sa ating basic education learning continuity plan na sa NCR po, Senator, ang tawag nun ay logged-in class blended version. Actually, yung logged-in acronym siya ng losses and learning gaps in distance education. So, doon po siya nasimulan at dinala po siya ngayon na meron na tayong learning continuity. Meron din naman po tayo kasing gains dito. So yung gains natin, nakapag-innovate po, nakatulad ng sinasabi ninyo, we digitize learning materials and then we have explainer videos na kung saan papanoodin lang ng mga magulang. Hindi na namin sila kailangang i-gather, tawagin lahat para paliwanagan kung papaano ang gagawain. May mga explainer video para sa magulang, para sa guro at para sa teacher. Hanggang sa ngayon po ay nagpapalabas po ang Solar Entertainment through sa ating DepEd Prime channel. Meron pong partnership ang DepEd NCR. At ang atin pong mga division offices, meron tayong mga studio po na nilagay ang mga SDOs. Kasi nga po, para lang matugunan yung pagbibigay ng kalidad na edukasyon sa ating mga mag-aaral. Siyempre po, kaya tayo may mga full refreshers or non-readers, there are also many other factors na nakaka-contribute bakit yung mga bata ay hindi higit na natututo. Because una, nakita namin na bigla sila sa remote learning. Ibig sabihin, kahit na hindi pa independent learners yung mga bata, na puwersa sila na mag-aral remotely, and that challenge ay tinugunan sa pamamagitan ng pagtutok sa mga batang nasa marginalized. So, yun lamang po. Marami pong salamat.
Napakagandang balita po yun. Katunayan, napapanood po namin yan ni Mariel noong pandemic. Yung mga palabas niyo po sa Channel 13 yata yun. Napapanood ko po yun. Opo, ang hiling ko lang po dyan, Ma'am Jennifer, sana po masuplayan niyo po yung mga cable. Kasi yung Channel 13 parang yung kanya pong inaabot, parang malapit lang sa Metro Manila o kung hindi man NCR hanggang GMA, ganyan lang siya eh. Opo, ibig sabihin Greater Manila po opo, hindi pa masyadong malayo po yung inaabot niya. Ang akin lang po, sana mas maganda magkaroon po kayo ng coordination sa mga LGU kung pwede po mabigyan niyo sila ng material para ma-air nila sa mga cable po nila. Yun lang po ma'am, congratulations po. Maraming salamat po.
Noted po, sir. Sasabihin ko po sa aming regional director po. Thank you po.
Thank you. Thank you, Ma'am Vivas. Nahiya lang ho si Senator Robin pero naibulong niya sa akin. Mukha raw ang natututo yung mga parents. Yung parents ho yata gumaling magbasa at saka magbilang pero yung estudyante hindi ho natuto. Oo. No, but that's not actually hindi ho yan maybe nakakatawa pero I think it's happening, no? Because nga itong mga bata ay non-independent eh. Itong mga grade 1 to grade 3, hindi ho nila kaya mag-aral ng sarili. Kailangan ho nila ng magtuturo ho sa kanila, yung magulang ang magtuturo. No? But yeah. So I think talagang nangyayari ho yan. Nakakatawa man na marinig pero I think that's the reality ho. Ma'am Vivas, to pursue, no? So in your opinion, do you see wisdom and the necessity for this bill?
Yes, sir. Opo. Noon nga pong una kong tinignan yung ARAL program, tinignan ko po yung website po ninyo, Senator. Kasi sabi ko, even if nakapag-craft kami ng learning continuity and recovery plan, itong ARAL program ay higit na makaka-sustain, matutulungan po. Kasi kagaya po sa NCR, majority of our 16 divisions sinasabi na in 3-year time, mako-close namin yung gap. 100% of our learners will be reading at grade level. So with the ARAL program, hindi lang naman po kasi itong non-readers or full refreshers ang nangangailangan ng tutoring support. Madaming support na kailangan yung bata. Mas naging expansive po, sir, yung reach ng mga bata na mabibigyan ng tutok ng ARAL program. At makakatulong po ito lalo na sa mga guro kapag ito pong bill na to ay naipas. Makikita natin na even nakita ko nga, sir, na who are the possible tutors in the ARAL program, yung mga through the NSTP. So sabi ko, maganda din to sa mga TEIs, lalong-lalo na yung mga teacher education institutions na meron naman silang kasing immersion sa kanilang sa mga schools na they select para mag-practice teaching sila. Baka maganda din pong sila mismo, total, they will be future teachers, this will help them develop the competency as well. So, napakaganda po ng ARAL program. And also, sa Australia din po, nagkaroon din po ako ng chance na mag-aral doon. Nakita ko po na yung tutoring is very important. It started actually sa sa Britain, yung tutoring. Ang nakita ko naman po doon, yung involvement din ng parent as tutors. So, aside from teachers, para-teachers, parents as tutors, at sa tutoring po, maganda din po kung ma-include yung yung mga bata natin na already reading, our advanced learners naman natin na ginagawa po sa ating mga divisions. Nag-tutor din sila sa kanilang mga lower grade learners. So ibig sabihin po, through the ARAL program, the culture of tutoring, collaboration ay mas nating mapapaigting. Sir, maraming salamat po for thinking about this ARAL program kasi nung nag-benchmark kami sa Korea, sabi ko, ang national nila, ang ganda nung kanilang ginagawa. Meron sila talagang very specific program na focus lang, hindi madami. So, nakita po natin itong ARAL program, hindi lang po ito sa NCR, mapapakinabangan. Lahat po ng region sa buong Pilipinas ay nangangailangan po ng ARAL program kasi this will help us sustain and really close our gap in the learning continuity and recovery. Kasi meron naman po tayong measure at sinusubukan pa po namin humingi ng mga available standard tool po para kung saan masusukat po yung ating mga bata na hindi nakakabasa. And after the intervention, susukatin pa rin po para makita natin na na-close ba natin yung ating gap and then later on, help them be successful in their learning. Maraming salamat po, Senator.
Ma'am Vivas, let's go into the bill, no? And thank you for your vocal support and manifestation to support this bill. Let's go into the details, no? Since DepEd will be the chief implementer of this bill. I just want to ask your pick your brains on this. Do you suggest that the ARAL bill only focus on Key Stage 1? Or do we focus on the entire basic education grade levels?
Sir, sa amin pong sa NCR po yung learning continuity ay nakafocus siya, na prioritize natin yung Key Stage 1. Pero pinag-uusapan nga po namin ng aming team, meron din tayong mga learner in other key stages who are struggling na they are not able to reach the competencies required of them. Kasi nga, nakikita natin sa result na they are not proficient. So, maganda po na sir na maging yung ARAL program sir ay ma-include yung other key stages. Kasi siguro sir, kung ang ARAL program natin ay for example, nakaano siya sa key stage 1, we are seeing itong key stage 1 natin na naalagaan natin through the ARAL program. When they do go to the next key stages, hindi na masyadong malaki yung ating magiging gaps or magiging challenges sa mga bata. So, maganda sir ma-include po. Salamat po sir.
In terms of subjects or competencies, in your opinion, do we focus on the fundamental subjects like math and reading, or do we focus on the other subjects as well?
Sir, nakita po namin kasi yung reading talaga is basic. If a learner cannot, sabi nyo nga po kanina, they are struggling in reading, they would not be able to understand or develop competencies in other learning areas. So, kagaya po ng sa region siguro, yung sasabihin ko na lang, natutok po tayo sa sa reading and numeracy. Kasi kapag ang bata mahina sa reading, affected yung kanyang numeracy and science. Maganda po sir yung nabasa ko dito na nakafocus siya sa reading, mathematics, and science po.
So you agree on those fundamental
I agree, sir.
subjects? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Opo.
Another question is, I know that DepEd released several memos and orders regarding remedial and advancement classes, particularly DepEd Memo 36 and also DepEd Order 25. How do you see the interplay or the interplay or the relationship between this ARAL bill or ARAL program and the existing DepEd memorandum?
Ang nakita ko sir, hindi yung ARAL program, hindi po mahihirapan ang DepEd. Kung ito pong bill na ito ay maipasa, hindi po siya magiging mahirap para sa DepEd personnel na i-implement nito kasi siya, it's even more strengthening what is already been doing. Mas nabigyan pa siya ng ang bago po dito is yung using tapping our college learners. So, maganda po siya, sir. Parang it's already, siguro kung ilang years, we are fostering here a culture of learning sa school level. Kasi sa teachers naman po, meron silang LAC, Learning Action Cell, sir, na inaano din natin, ini-strengthen. We are telling them that dahil sa kulang tayo sa budget, doon tayo sa workplace learning, sa Learning Action Cell. And the ARAL program, sir, hindi po siya nag-go against in the existing yung mga remediation. It is actually strengthening, reinforcing pa at mas nabigyan siya sir ng mas more defined kung sino yung magiging teachers nito, how can they be remunerated, what are ang maganda dito sir napakita din kahit kung kakoy college, what's in it for them if they do become a volunteer of the ARAL program. So kitang-kita po kaagad yung ang ganda nga po sir while I was going through this bill, sabi ko ang ganda, kitang-kita kaagad yung benefit nito to all those who are participating. Mas gagaang po aalwa ang gawain ng teacher at sa pagdating naman sa big picture sa learning continuity and recovery, mas makikita po natin na mas ma-expedite, ma-close yung ating gaps na nalaman po.
Thank you, Ma'am Vivas. I have a lot of questions pa regarding the bill itself and the concepts, but I want to call on the other resource persons who are here with us.
Thank you, sir.
So, Ma'am, stay put first, and we'll get back to you on the other details. But we're also joined by a private sector organization, and they're very active. In fact, they sent us a very comprehensive position paper. We're joined by Philippine Educational Measurement and Evaluation Association, and they also voiced out their support to this bill. But I want to call Ma'am Marilyn Balagtas for her comments and also for her suggestions on the bill. Ma'am?
Um, Thank you, Honorable Senator Win Gatchalian, and to everyone. Good morning. First of all, we would like to thank Senator Win for giving PIMEA the chance to be one of the resource persons in this hearing on the ARAL program. Now, of course, you mentioned, Senator, that we have already submitted our position paper for the proposed bill, and we detailed there all the sections that we thought need clarifications. And we could just maybe request the Secretariat to refer to all the details. But I would like to personally share my responses to your initial questions as to how important assessment is in the context of this ARAL program that your office is proposing. And you were also asking if we have assessment in the last 2 years that could provide support to this Senate bill. No? As far as I know, well, of course, I'm here as PIMEAN, being the president of the organization, but I happen to be also from the Philippine Normal University, and in the university, I'm currently the dean of the PNU College of Graduate Studies and Teacher Education Research. And in December of 2020, we submitted a report to the Department of Education as to our analysis of the basic education exit assessment. Now, sometime in 2017, we had a MOA. The Philippine Normal University had a MOA with the Department of Education to produce the basic education exit assessment. This is the test that we give to our exiting senior high school students. So we were commissioned by the Department of Education. When I say we, my apology, but what I'm sharing is what we did at the Philippine Normal University, because I happen to have led the programs that we did for the Department of Education. And I'm referring first to the development of the basic education exit assessment. So we did that. And part of our commitment to the Department of Education, when we delivered the tool for use nationwide, is to analyze the data that could be generated from this basic education exit assessment. And we did the analysis of the census data, which was administered in school year 2018-2019. And I am referring to the results of the senior high school exit assessment given to public and private senior high school students in academic school year 2018-2019. And in the data that we analyze, it has reached this number of 1,263,963 senior high school students who participated in the census that was conducted by the Department of Education. So, as part of our commitment to the Department of Education, we were given access to this data. So, this 1.3, almost 1.3 million data. And what we did was to analyze the data again. We did a reanalysis on the data that they have already reported. And when I say reanalysis, their analysis was through measuring the mean percentage score. But what we did was to actually determine the percentage of the senior high school students who answered correctly, each of the items in the test, because the test covered 8 core areas. These are all core areas in the senior high school curriculum, and these are language and communication, Wika at communication, humanities, media and information literacy, mathematics, science, social sciences, and personality development. And in the analysis that we did, we looked at just a sample. And when we say a sample of the 1.3 million senior high school students, we looked at the actual actual data of 140,000 senior high school students. And in our analysis of their proficiency in 4 areas, we looked at their problem solving, information literacy, and critical thinking as one. And then another area that we examined is their content knowledge, and then their competencies, and then their performance standards. And the general picture for all those areas that I mentioned is that less than 50% of the senior high school students who graduated in school year 2018-2019 have demonstrated proficiency in all those 8 areas that I mentioned. When we talk about the mean percentage score of the senior high school students in this 1.2 million who have been census, the mean percentage score is also lower than 50%. So it shows that learning poverty is not only gauged by looking at stage 1. Of course, that's K to 3, but I guess it would be good at looking at the exit stage as well, and that is senior high school, because it is in this pool of Filipino learners where we will be taking, the professionals who will be directed to different fields, including those who will go into teaching. And so I think it is important for us to look at the data. So if I could continue with my presentation of the actual percentage of students who have demonstrated proficiency. And when we say demonstrated proficiency here, as I said, is answering the test fully correct, in each of the items that we examined in this basic education exit assessment. For language and communication, for example, because our analysis is quite detailed as we look at 4 areas, only 40% demonstrated proficiency when it comes to those 3 major 21st century skills. And I'm referring to problem solving. Again, just to reiterate what I said a while back, problem solving, information literacy, and critical thinking. When we look at their content, I said 40%, that's for content knowledge. For competencies, that's 42.75%. For performance standards, that's 42.12%. So it's all just like below 50%. And then when we compared the results of their performance in Filipino, we saw lower rates, like, for example, 38.34 for the 21st century skills, 43.57 for content knowledge, 40.75 for competencies, 38.46 for performance standards. So quite alarming that even in Filipino, that we see fewer than 50% of our senior high school students who graduated in that academic year have demonstrated proficiency. And then when we look at mathematics, this is actually the area that seemed to be the hardest, as we saw almost just a quarter of the sample that we analyzed, and I'm referring to 140,000, which is just like about 11% of the census data. Mathematics proficiency in the 21st century skills is just 24.60%. For content knowledge, it's just 28.86%. For the competencies, cutting across all content areas, it's just 29.86%. And for the performance standards, that's just 28.70%. For science, it's a little bit higher than mathematics, but it's still alarming, as it's around a quarter of them demonstrated the same proficiency, like for their problem-solving skills, 32.31%, for content knowledge, 32.69%, for competencies, 33.7%, and for performance standards, 34.59%. So, Senator Win and all other honorable senators that we have here in this hearing, I just demonstrated to you that indeed we support this proposed ARAL program, because we believe in its rationale that we need to really find a solution to what obviously, evidently is a learning poverty as defined in the World Bank report, and in your proposal is learning loss. But we are just a bit confused with the terms that were used, because I think there are 4 terms that seem to be synonymous in how they were used, like learning poverty, learning loss, learning decrease, and learning gap. Maybe for this proposed bill that we could operationalize all these terms, so we have a clear reference as to the meaning of each of those terms that were mentioned. So, Senator, I just shared four, but as I said in our report to the Department of Education, we covered 8 core areas. Thank you, Senator. We just want to refer your secretariat to the details of what PIMEA has submitted, because what I shared is from the report of the Philippine Normal University that we happen to have conducted for the Department of Education. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Ma'am Marilyn. Thank you very much for your position paper. Indeed, it was very detailed, and we truly appreciate the kind of detail that you gave us and pinpointed things that we can improve on the bill. We can actually discuss that during the technical working group. But today, I want to focus on the assessment. I want to focus on the solutions, no? And let me pick narrow down, no, and break down the assessment that you mentioned earlier. If I understand it correctly, the DepEd conducted a senior high school exit assessment in which the PNU analyzed and gave recommendations. Tama po ba?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And was there a pre-pandemic equivalent of this test?
It is a pre-pandemic, Senator. It's a
This is
pre-pandemic.
pre-pandemic. So what
Yes,
year
sir.
was this, ma'am?
The first test was given in school year 2017 and 2018, but I think it was not census, no, in its administration. And so I believe based on the information that we got from the Bureau of Educational Assessment, they gave us actually 2 sets of data, the 2017-2018 BEA. This is the Basic Education Exit Assessment. Sorry for using the term BEA when BEA could also refer to Bureau of Educational Assessment. So there were 2 data sets given to us. The data sets for school year 2017 and 2018 and the 2018-2019. But we were advised to analyze the 2018-2019. And this is where we based our analysis of the proficiency, the percentage of proficient senior high school students based on that exam. So it is a pre-pandemic, but we completed our analysis during the pandemic. That's why I mentioned it was a report that we submitted to the Department of Education in December 2020. And of course, that's pandemic time already, as it was only at that time when we completed our report.
Was there any post-pandemic or during
That
the
we
pandemic
did?
equivalent? Yes. So we can track down the progress or the regression of the student.
What I know, Senator, is that if we refer to DepEd Order number 31, series of 2020, I think there was, I might be wrong because I'm not from the Department of Education, but I think the advice is not to conduct national assessments yet, as it says there in the DepEd Order that there will be a separate policy on how the national assessments will be conducted. But if we recall, in 2022, Senator, we participated in PISA. And I happen to have served as a PISA quality monitor. I think I'm one of the 3 that has been contracted by the OECD contracted firm. And so I thought I know of some details, like from April to May of 2022 that we took the PISA 2022. Of course, the results might be out by a year, no? That's the usual time when reports are out. But I think if we talk about the pandemic assessment, whatever the outcome would be in this participation in PISA 2022 could be considered as pandemic assessments, Senator.
For this basic education exit assessment, Was there any of this assessment in 2022, 2021 during the pandemic?
That I'm not sure of because the
Okay.
exam that we did was paper based, and so it cannot be conducted
Okay.
in person type or face to
So,
face type.
so ma'am, before the pandemic struck, the exit assessment, basically what it said is less than 50% of our students, that means 600,000 senior high school students, demonstrated minimum proficiency and below.
Um,
Tama po ba?
Proficiency in our context of our analysis is really knowing what is correct
Yeah.
in the set of exams. So it's not just minimum there, but it's really full proficiency as our analysis is not percentage score. Unlike the analysis that DepEd did, it's based on mean percentage score. So whatever score that they obtained, they just took the average of this, and that's their indicator of proficiency. But in our analysis, it's right or wrong. So when we say, let's say 29% proficient, these are indeed students who know what is right or what how they should respond to questions measuring their skills or measuring their content knowledge.
So I just want to make it more layman, Ma'am Marlene, so that people who are following this hearing will understand um, the interpretation of the examination, of the assessment. So what we're saying, for example po, itong, you mentioned earlier, less than 50% of the 1.2 million demonstrated proficiency. So does that mean that below 50%, 50% and below are not proficient?
Yes, sir.
And then you also
More than
mentioned
50, sorry, I think I'm wrong. More than 50%, sir, because it's below 50% who are proficient. And so if we talk about non-proficiency, it's greater than 50%, sir.
okay, yeah, greater than 50% are not proficient.
Proficient.
And also the same in Filipino,
Yes,
only
sir.
50% are proficient. So on the other side, less than greater, I guess 50% are not proficient also kasi it's
That's
equal,
right.
no? But in terms of math and science, less than 25% are proficient.
For mathematics, yes, you're right. Almost 25%.
Yeah.
Because it ranges from 24% to 29%. So let's say just 30 are proficient, and so about 50 or 70% rather of
Yeah.
them are not proficient.
Correct. So on the other side, 70% are not proficient.
Yes, in mathematics.
So, Ma'am Marlene, in your expert opinion, because we did not assess, no, during the pandemic, in your opinion, will these numbers worsen or
In
improve?
the pandemic, my estimation of how they will perform in the pandemic time, if let's say we continued to administer the BEA or the Basic Education Exit Assessment, is lower. Yes,
So
because of course, yeah, it could be lower, Senator.
it can be lower, kasi we all know that it was modular. They used
Yes.
modules, and also there was no face-to-face classes at all,
right.
no, for 2 years.
Yes,
So,
that's
in
right.
your expert opinion, you estimate that this will go down, no, or will
Yes.
worsen? Okay.
Worsen.
And Dr. Marlene, you mentioned that you see merit in this proposal, the ARAL bill. What do you, in a nutshell, no? How can we how can we improve this bill, no, and to address the worsening scenario or the worsening situation? I appreciate your support for the bill, together with DepEd. But in your expert opinion, what else can we put in the bill to directly address the worsening situation?
This this actually we put in our paper, but generally our suggestion is first to define what we mean by mastery, because there are different yardsticks of mastery. Like if we talk about the national assessment data, I think mastery is determined here by the percentage of correct answer in the test, like 75. When the students have reached a score of at least 75%, then that could be indicative of mastery. But if we talk about international standards, for example, if we talk about CPLM, I think their way of determining proficiency is also different, no? As there are several levels of proficiency there. And when we talk about PISA, out of 6 levels of proficiency, proficient to them is at least reaching level 2, no, out of 6 or even 7 proficiency levels. So one area that we need to clarify in this proposed bill is how we define mastery. So that's one area, Senator. And then in terms of our basis for in determining who should be assisted among our Filipino learners, I think we support the idea that there should be baseline data. But what would be our baseline data? If DepEd has, administered tests for all levels, then maybe, and they continue to have administered this even during the time of the pandemic, then this would be a good reference for us to determine, the trend as to who these students are that should be prioritized, given the limited budget that we have, for us to support the attainment of the learning outcomes. So whatever data we have, of course, it's better if we have a standardized national assessments. But in the absence of this, maybe whatever alternative sources of data that we could refer to could work. But that could be issue too as well, no? When data come from different sources, and we know that data could be interpreted differently too by whoever administers and interprets it. So that's one area. And then another area is the implication of the proposed tutorial program, not only to teacher education institutions, but to all other tertiary learners, because you were referring to college students as the ones who could serve as tutors. We understand that in your proposed bill, I think we came across this section that says they should have completed their NSTP or the literacy LTS, no, a training service. But to us, we are proposing that maybe as early as first year, these highly capable students could already be engaged as tutors. Like for example, we have this RA 10-6-12. Ito po yung 10-6-12. I think this is a pool of scholars from the Department of Science and Technology. 10-6-12 po ata po yun, Senator. And as they are not necessarily into teaching, not, or teacher education programs. They could come from different disciplines. But once they become a scholar of RA 106-12, they get support from DOST starting 3rd year to 4th year. And after that, there is a commitment for them to support the delivery of the senior high school program in particular. So I guess these students could also be tapped. They are not into teaching, but because they are funded by the government, because these are high select, tertiary level learners, that they could be utilized as well. And they spread across the country, across 17 regions. They could come from 17 regions. And I'm mentioning this law, Senator, because in that law, PNU has been named as also a resource to the Department of Education in training these scholars of the Department of Science and Technology for them to qualify to take the licensure examination for teachers, because they are non-education would-be professionals, but they are part of their commitment is to help deliver the senior high school program. So we we are training them to be able to, for them to be able to qualify to the requirements of the licensure examination for teachers. So in our initial training to this group, talagang mahuhusay po sila. So I think we should look into how we could maximize these scholars. So that's the RA 10612 scholar senator, no? But again, going back to our proposal, maybe as early as first year, no? And the tutoring that they could offer could be equivalent to NST, no? NSTP or LST po, no? Hindi necessarily compensated because that could be credited as equivalent to their NSTP load. So they will be more supervised, no, as this is usually taken as like a course, no po, diba? Yung NSTP and LST. So they are more supervised, and so we believe the conduct of the tutoring program could be more effective, and they don't have to be remunerated because it's part of their parang alternative to doing the NSTP. Now, another proposal we put there, Senator, if in case this gets, the approval of everyone, maybe we could introduce a restructuring too of the teacher education program, because at present, I think it's not ladderized. And when we say ladderized teacher education program, maybe there's a way of setting what the competencies are that are expected of those entering the teacher education programs in their, let's say, first year, second year, third year, fourth year, so that we could continuously build on their capacity to become a teacher, and their skills could start, the teaching skills could start as early as in their first year. Of course, when we talk about the teaching skills, we still want to refer them, whoever would craft the teacher education programs, to refer to the Philippine Professional Standards for Teachers as the main reference of what we mean here by being a teacher. So our suggestion, a stand of PMEA, is maybe a relooking of or revisiting our current teacher education program to introduce the ladderized teacher education program, so that we could identify possible posts or works or maybe stages, career stages prior to becoming a teacher that this would-be teachers could be targeting, like maybe the para teacher, no, or tutor, as maybe as early as in their first year they could already serve as one. And we need to capacitate their skills in facilitating learning, because when they serve as tutors, they should really gain the pedagogy appropriate to the kind of learners that they deal with.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Marlene, for those suggestions. Definitely, those suggestions will help sharpen the bill and improve the effectiveness of the bill. Ma'am, we request that hopefully in the future you can join us in the technical working group. We will need you there. I like your suggestion about the first year college, also using the other scholarship program. Tama ho kayo, there are a lot of scholarship programs scattered all over different departments. No? Even sa SUCs meron. No? So we can operationalize that through this law. So hopefully we can invite PMEA to join us during the technical working group. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much. Well, I'll have more questions, but I'll ask na lang later so we can we can hear the other people for their comments. Before I continue, I saw Senator Coco Pimentel. He was here earlier. No? Nandiyan ba siya? Nandiyan pa. Okay. So yeah, Senator Pimentel is here, our minority floor leader. Good morning, sir. Any opening statements, Senator Pimentel? I know you're on the road. You're moving.
I'm here to listen, Mr. Chairman. Although I have read the bill, mamaya na rin yung questions ko. Opo.
Thank you. Thank you. We go on to NEDA, no, and NEDA's been very vocal about school closure, especially during the last administration. I remember Secretary Carl Chua will give very pointed and detailed discussion on school closures, the scarring effect, and the effect to productivity in the medium to long term. So may I also ask the opinion of NEDA insofar as the necessity of this bill and also their observations in light of the school closure. I was actually requesting for an updated computation on school closure. Maybe this is the right time now to present to the body the effects of school closures, no? And how NEDA sees the solution to mitigate this effect. So NEDA, go ahead. Miss Gurley, naka-mute ho kayo. I cannot hear you.
Hello?
There, but it's can you speak loudly?
Hello?
Ayan, yeah, better.
Hello. Yes, good morning. Good morning, Honorable Senator Madian, and also Senator Padilla, Senator Amy Marcos, and Senator Pimentel. Yes, we po, Senator Vincent observations because yes, ever since Secretary Chua, then Secretary Chua was very vocal on NEDA's position of reopening the classes and having face-to-face classes. That is also the reason why we are also happy that this coming November there will already be full face-to-face classes for all schools, both public and private sector. In terms of the education losses, yes, Senator, we received your request. We are currently doing our recommendation, calculating some of the assumptions because we need to consider as well that last year there are about 25% for the Department of Education schools who have already pilot tested, and we also gathered that the ADB have updated studies in terms of the percentages of learning losses. But we will give the reputed economic losses in terms of these non-face-to-face non-face-to-face learning by before the end of this Senator Binet will send to your office. Then in terms of this bill, we fully support the bill on ARAL because also based on other studies and what NEDA has been pushing since last year, we really need a recovery program for learning losses to be incurred. The previous computation of NEDA was around 11 trillion for 40 years. For 2020 alone, we with around 230 billion of losses, learning losses, if we do not really resume or face to face. And just that po, comments on the bill. We po on including the performance in the LIS because as we see it right now, it's very hard actually for policymakers to revisit the performance of the schools and have the appropriate education policies because the data and the information is not that accessible. So we fully agree with that section of the bill. We also support the ARAT program, especially for the grades 1 to 3 because that is the foundational school level. And as what we've heard with the presentation of NCR and the PNU, that really if we do not do anything in terms of our grade 1 to 3 students, we will be losing so much until the senior high school students are learning capacities and abilities. And as an additional comment po, Senator Galian, we wanted to propose that the evaluation of the ARAL program be done at least every 6 years program itself to see some calibrations because we note that the PISA is being done every 3 years, the same with teams. So probably around 6 years would be a good evaluation of the ARAL program. And then secondly, we want to post in terms of the get volunteer teachers, perhaps the NDSCA, an attached agency of NEDA, can be a partner in terms of mobilizing our volunteer teachers that can help out in the ARAL program. We note that it's good proposal to include our current tertiary students in terms of tapping them as tutors. But we also shared that our NEDA Regional 2 had this program on Adapt a Learner program wherein NEDA employees, government employees, were able to provide some of their time during weekends to also help out the schools in a region tutor. So it might be also a good idea to perhaps if there are government employees who are able and willing to give their time to be tutors as well, because note a lot of government employees are also a graduate of master's programs abroad, and it is also good to have their expertise to help us out in these times. Then Senator, if we can also post that some of the sections be made more flexible because do not know in the future if we will be facing. Of course, we do not want to face another pandemic, but there might be some advantage if we will be more flexible in terms of some of the sections like section 8, 9, and 10. If we can just put a general statements rather than very specific statements on the provision, so it can be more flexible in the future. So for NETA, that's for now po, Senator Win.
Miss Gurley, you mentioned earlier volunteer from NEDA.
The NETA region, we have regional office pilot tested program. They call it Adapt Learner program. It's the NEDA employees of NRO2 who did during the pandemic tutorial remedial programs for some schools in the region. So it's like a volunteer program and proves to be very helpful in terms of grade 3 students. Mga grade 3 students po, yung ilang tinry na or we include coordination with the region 2 office as well. So it might also be from that might also be a good suggestion to also perhaps open up the ARAL program for interested government employees as well.
Ma'am, sorry for the delay. No, I'm just I was talking to my staff. I remember Secretary Carl Chua mentioned a figure of the country will stand to lose about 10 trillion pesos from now to 2040 for every year of school closure.
Yes, Senator, sa 10.795 trillion, if you add the 2020 of 230 billion, sa total of 11 trillion.
Okay. And I understand since we close schools for 2 years, you just multiply this by 2 years. No? By times 2. Correct? Tama po ba?
So, actually po, dun sa presentation ni Senator, ni Secretary previously, they said this one full year of school closure.
Correct.
Is already for 2 years actually.
Now, for 1 school year of school closure, the country will stand to lose about 10 trillion pesos, no, for the next 20 years until 2040 in terms of productivity. No? And we inquired from NEDA because obviously 2 years na close yung school natin. So you just multiply it by 2, no? And so therefore the productivity losses is about 21.6 trillion for 2 years of school closures. And then because of the other productivity losses in health, consumption, investment, the total is 74 trillion. No? But I just want to focus on the school closure in 21 trillion. Is that
Senator, if I may just correct the 11 trillion assumption. Actually, the assumption that we did for the 11 trillion is that the losses multiplier is 63% for the school year 2020 and 2021, 48% for school year 2021-2022. So in effect po, the 11 trillion, 10.786 trillion, of that trillion, including 2020, is already a 2-year education loss. Meron kasi ng confusion with the statement in, I think, in our presentations, at least 1 full school year. Assumption already includes 2 school years.
so let me just put on the record your latest latest number for 2 school years. What would be the productivity losses from now to 2040?
That's that is the 11, that is 10.795 trillion.
10.795
795 trillion.
trillion. So
Yes.
that's for 2 years na.
Yes, yes, Senator.
Okay.
Within
For 2
the
years
week, we will be updating because we wanted to include already the 21, karon nga po ng face-to-face learning pilot last year of around 21%, 21% of school. So yung in model, so we will be updating the figure by within the week. We will give it.
Yeah, but for the purposes of the discussion today, no, because the important yan eh. It's important to put on record the losses, the productivity losses, because we need to quantify school closures
Yes,
in terms of potential productivity losses for our economy.
Yes,
And because that will rationalize the budget later on that I will discuss. No? Because if you look at the budget request, magugulat ka eh, laki. No? But if you compare this to the productivity losses of 10.79 trillion, then it's a different perspective altogether. No? But let me just narrow down, no? Just to put it on record, 10.795 trillion for 2 years of school closure.
Yes po, Senator.
Okay. Okay. And in your opinion, because in the bill, the estimated amount, no, full amount to, is about 20 billion pesos, no? And the 20 billion sounds big, but if you compare that to the losses, it's about, let me just show it on slide. No, it's about 0.18%, less than a percent, no, of the productivity losses. And we came up with another figure. No, if we concentrate on key stage 1, it will go down to about 5 billion pesos. No, so that's about 0.04% of the potential productivity losses of 10 trillion. So, Ma'am Gurley, do you think it's logical to spend 20 billion to avert a potential 10.8 trillion in terms of losses?
With with the assumption good Senator said, I think po it's 20 billion would is logical in terms of implementing the program, especially if we are really targeting
Ma'am Girlie, can you repeat that? Medyo choppy kayo with your headset. You're coming in very choppy. But can you repeat that statement because that's important eh. We want to capture that on record.
the assumptions po the senator is giving like the 10 trillion losses. Spending 20 billion seems logical, but we we just need to ensure po Senator Galian that budget will not part of budget will not go to administrative I mean the administrative part of implementation, more on really the other important components of the ARAL program, like the supplies needed, materials needed, compensation is needed for the tutors, and very important components of the program.
Because on the other side, Ma'am Girlie, if we don't do anything, no massive no massive intervention or no massive academic recovery program, then what Ma'am Marlene was saying earlier, that we will see a much worse number for our exit assessment, no? Because pre-pandemic it's already bad. No, without any intervention, as an expert in education, she's expecting that it will become worse. So we just want to quantify that in terms of productivity. And what Neda is saying, without doing anything, the country has already or will lose 10 trillion pesos in the next 20 years. So
It's 40
the
years.
next question, sorry?
It's 40 years, Senator.
40 years, no? So to avert those losses, no, in the next 40 years, we need intervention, and the cost of intervention is 20 billion pesos. No, I believe the 10 trillion is already net present value yan. So at current values yan. No? So what we're seeing is 20 billion pesos is only 0.14% of the potential productivity losses for the next 40 years. So to avert that 10 trillion is actually quite cheap to spend on the academic recovery program. No? Because if, again, on the other side, if you don't do anything, we lose 10 trillion right away. No? So I just want to put that on record, and I just want everyone to appreciate that, because the 20 billion seems very big, no, at face value. But if you just oppose that to the potential losses, it's actually quite small, no. And of course, the other things there will be increased in learner outcomes, increase in learner performance, all of those things, no. But this is just putting a quantifiable number, no, to the impact of pandemic to education. All right. So that's do you agree with that, Ma'am Girlie, as a NEDA officer? Do you think that it's wise to put the 20 billion investment now?
Spice an investment at the moment, Senator Win. There's no other appropriate time but to have these interventions right.
Yeah, Ma'am Girlie, can you repeat that again? Medyo choppy ka eh. I think your headset, I think NEDA needs to buy you a new headset, no? Your headset is choppy, no? It's not going to cost you 20 billion to buy a headset. No? So can you repeat that again? And my question is it wise to make that investment, that 20 billion investment now?
Senator Win, it's there's really a need to invest right now in terms of a recovery program for our learners. There is no appropriate time but now to implement the reforms that we need to really catch up the learning losses we had in the last 2 years of pandemic.
Thank you, Ma'am Gurley. Thank you very much for that. We'll thank you for your contribution, and we appreciate your candor. We call on Ched for their comments on the bill, and also their any suggestions regarding how to further improve the bill. So we call on Ched.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you for inviting Ched to this meeting for today. We provided our inputs in terms po ng data on the National Service Training Program graduates broken down by each of the component programs as required po. And the data indicated from academic year 2015 to 2016 to the latest academic year. And as mentioned po, it was broken down per components of the NSTP, the ROTC, CWTS, and LTS. And currently po, we have a total of 1,471,805 graduates of these three components. For the ROTC, we have 335,964. For the CWTS, we have 1,027,303. And for the LTS, or the Literacy Training Service, we have 108,538. Mr. Chair, as regards to the clarification stated under the latest revised IRR for RA 9163 or the NSTP Act of 2001, particularly Section 6, Paragraph A, that students for each of the NSTP components shall undergo the NSTP program for an academic period of 2 semesters and credited for 3 units per semester. The CHED and TESDA shall determine the equivalent course unit, training hours for higher education institutions and technical vocational institutes, respectively, and the equivalent course units or training hours for higher education institutions has been determined by CHED through the issuance of a memorandum from the chairman on the revised minimum standards for NSTP common modules and NSTP1 specific and optional modules. However, the revised minimum standards for NSTP2 is still on the draft stage. And that, Mr. Chair, is our office, the Office of Student Development and Services. That would be all, Mr. Chair, as regards our inputs or comments to the mentioned provisions of the ARAL bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Ma'am, let's break it down for a bit, no? First of all, under the ARAL bill, it will use the students who are taking up NSTP and its components, no? I'll make it a general first right now. Is that possible, Ma'am Cynthia? This Cynthia. Ma'am Cynthia?
Yes, Mr. Chair. We have the three components of the NSTP, and we could top the graduates of the literacy training service for this particular bill. Literacy training service is designed to train the students to teach literacy and numeracy skills to school, out of school youth, and other segments of society in need of their services.
In other words, ma'am, we can use the NSTP students as tutors, no, as potential tutors for the academic recovery program.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And particularly the LTS track.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Ma'am, I'll go back to the numbers. No, you said there are about 1.4 million NSTP students nationwide.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Currently, we still have an ongoing data collection, and the data we provided this point will only cover the academic year 2015 until 2021, Mr. Chair.
So for every let's keep it simple first, no? So on the average, every year there are about 1.4 million students taking up NSTP.
No, Mr. Chair, this is the total number between 2015 to 2021, Mr. Chair.
So every year, how many students are taking up NSTP?
Example po, for 2020, we have 2020 to 2021, Mr. Chair, we have for the ROTC, 28,491. For the CWTS, Mr. Chair, we have 55,912. And for the LTS, we have 9,035, Mr. Chair, or a total of 93,438 for the three components for 2024.
So in other words, every year there are about average lang about tama ba?
93,438.
That's not so many.
Yes, that's Mr. Chair.
Nasaan napunta na po yung iba? Diba every there are about 3 million tertiary education students. And assuming that they take this NSTP 2 semesters, so we're talking about close to about probably 900,000. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, our data is still ongoing for its data collection beginning 2018, Mr. Chair.
I just want to get average lang, ma'am, so that we can compute right away how many potential tutors we can muster. No? So I just want to know in a year, how many students, NSTP students do we have?
Right now, sir, we cannot determine yet, but we'll provide as soon as possible.
Like, I'm looking at the freshman data nationwide. It's about 1.3 million students, Ma'am Cynthia. So, logically, that 1.3 million students will be the one taking up NSTP. Tama po ba?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
So, nasaan na ho yung, if you mention 93, nasaan na yung 1.2? Nasaan na po yung
Mr. Chair, may I request my companion, the NSTP focal po, Mr. Eugene.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead po. These are simple numbers lang ho. Nothing.
Yes,
These are
Mr.
not
Chair.
These are
Thank you
not
very much.
rocket science numbers. These are basic numbers lang ho. So how many students NSTP? Because I estimated about 1 million yan eh. Go ahead, Mr. Eugene.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead po.
Precisely, sir, kung ilan po yung enrollment, dapat po, kung anong taon, yun po dapat yung naka-enroll din po sa NSTP natin. It will depend lang po kung ano po yung pipiliin ng bata doon sa tatlong component. So, kung yung data po natin na available dyan is 1.3 million po, yun din po dapat yung naka-enroll doon sa NSTP program po natin.
Okay. Medyo naguguluhan ako kasi dapat kanina sabi 93,000, ngayon 1.3. So it's 1.3 NSTP students. Correct?
Correct, sir. Pero yung available data nga po namin, yung kagaya po na sinabi ni Ms. Hernandez po, yun lang po, yung 93,000 po.
Anyways,
record sa amin, sir.
Submit to us immediately the official data. No, because we need to know exactly how many students, because that's connected to the budget also eh. No?
Yes, sir.
So please submit to us the exact number of NSTP students.
Yes, sir.
At the same time, tama po ba, Mr. Eugene, na every two semesters ko cover nila? No? One
Yes, sir.
NSTP students, 2 semesters.
Correct, sir.
How, in terms of man hours, how many man hours per semester?
Yung sa common modules po natin, will compose of 25 hours po yun. Then yung sa specific module na po, for CWTS and LTS, take 83 hours po yun, sir.
Per semester yun.
Yes, sir.
So ulitin natin in common, how many in common?
25 hours po.
25 hours per semester.
Yes.
And then yung specific modules,
83 po.
83 hours per semester para makagraduate ka ng NSTP. Alright, okay. Let me ask you, Mr. Eugene, ito bang si ROTC and CWTS, what year are they? Anong year na sila?
Sir Chair, anong year po?
Anong year level? First year, second year, third year, fourth year?
Usually first year din po, sir.
Usually first year. Can they teach basic literacy and basic numeracy?
Ang right now po yung LTS lang po talaga nagtuturo po sa, nag-tutorial po sa basic education po natin, sir. Pero yung CWTS po, na kukonductin po ng mga advocacy program like yung sa mga drugs education.
Yeah, I understand yung LTS talaga, no? Kasi ano siya eh, yan talaga yung kanyang
focus po nila. Yung po yung focus
yung kanyang focus. But I want to also get your opinion on whether the CWTS and the ROTC can also help in the tutoring of basic literacy and basic numeracy.
For CWTS, sir, I can speak of, pwede rin po sila. But for ROTC, maybe we can ask DND for that, sir.
The reason why I ask, if it's 1 million per year, then we have 1 million tutors that we can deploy. But based on your ratio, LTS ang pinaka-konting kumukuha eh.
Yes, sir.
So maybe that ang kumukuha ng LTS a year, mayroon bang 200,000? No, baka assuming 200,000, then that's only 200,000 out of, we're talking about 23 million basic education students.
Yes,
So that's my point. If we can expand the tutors to cover all NSTP, then we can muster many tutors to cover the 23 million basic education students. Yun po yung punto ko. That's why I'm trying to get the numbers.
sir.
Yeah.
Siguro sir, we can also tap yung graduates po. Yung mga nasa NSRC na po, sir. Yung mga graduates natin na nasa NSRC po, sir.
Okay. What is ano?
Yung National Service Reserve Corps, sir. After po kasi nung makagraduate yung mga bata doon sa NSTP po, sa CWTS and LTS, doon po sila pupunta sa reservice corps natin sa NSRC po, sir.
All right, sige. Thank you, Mr. Eugene. Thank you for that. Any more comments from Ched regarding the bill? Do you any more comments? Oh? If not naman, thank you very much to Ched. Next will be DILG, Attorney Cynthia Polido.
Good morning, Your Honor. On the part of DILG, Mr. Chair, we also signify our full support to the passage of Senate Bill number 150. Our official position paper still for approval of Secretary Avalos. As soon as it is approved, sir, we will submit the official position paper of the department. However, as advanced comments or observations, may we present the following? The department does not object to Section 13B, which mandates the barangay halls as venue where physical enrollment forms can be made available. However, we would like to seek clarification, Your Honor, whether submission of the required enrollment documents can also be made in the barangay halls as well as yung processing ng protocol po pag alimbawang pwedeng mag-submit sa barangay hall. In Section 17, it was also provided that the para-teachers who serve as tutors shall be compensated from the budget of the DepEd and the Special Education Fund. I think, Your Honor, this is in accordance with DepEd, DBM, and DILG Joint Circular Number 2 Series of 2020, wherein it is allowed that payment of honoraria and allowances of locally hired personnel, trained and qualified tutors or learning facilitators can be taken. In Section 19, Your Honor, we also suggest, since the term parental involvement is mentioned therein, we would like to consider also those instances where the learners are under the care of legal guardians. Kung pwede po tayong gumamit ng general term rather than parental involvement, Your Honor. Yun lang po.
Thank you, Attorney. Attorney, I have thank you for those. No, we all know that the local government units, the local chief executives, play a very important role insofar as implementing programs, no, in their locality, and the success and failure of the programs is hinged on the participation of the local chief executive. So meaning if the local chief executive is hands-on and passionate about the program, the success of it most likely will be quite high. So, in your opinion, how can we get the local chief executives more involved in this academic recovery proposal? Because in our bill, admittedly, that we only stipulated the use of the SEF. But do you see the need of do you see the need for an active participation of the local chief executive insofar as this academic recovery proposal is concerned?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, meron po kayo dun sa section 10, wherein nilagay niyo din po that DepEd in collaboration with the local government unit shall provide a safe learning environment for face-to-face tutorials by investing in hygiene facilities and supplies and establishing safety health protocols therein. Siguro yun na po yung specify lang po, elaborate lang po yung involvement ng LGUs through their local chief executives, Your Honor.
I was thinking more on, let's say, diba, ang DILG, they have a seal of good housekeeping and seal of good governance. Meron pa ba yung governance? No? Or that is scrapped already?
Kasama pa rin po.
So in that seal of good governance, as a reward mechanism, I was thinking of including, let's say, maybe loosely lang to. Maybe the efforts of the local government units for academic recovery, no, as a reward mechanism, and then maybe reward also the local government units for participation in innovation on academic recovery. Of course, what we put in the law is quite general, but more proactive pa, no, through the DILG. And there's a reward mechanism, no, more rewards than punitive. Do you think that will be effective in so far as delivering academic recovery in the localities? Kasi right now it's really centered on DepEd, no? And but based on my experience as a former local chief executive, the local chief executive can really play a big role, no, in pushing for academic recovery. So, do you think that's a good idea? And what mechanisms can we employ to mobilize the local chief executives?
Your Honor, ang ibig niyo pong sabihin, ilalagay po sila sa, yung SGLG po kasi para siyang may checklist. So, parang isasali po siya itong ARAL bill. For example, kung yung LGU na yun ay nakakatupad or may strong commitment on the implementation ng ARAL bill, yun po yung gagawaran ng ano ba tawag doon, incentive, parang ganun po, Your Honor. Kung ganun po, Your Honor, pwede po. Isabihin ko na lang po sa BLGS kasi meron pong ibang Bureau of Local Government Supervision na sila po yung in charge ng implementation ng SGLG, Your Honor. I-coordinate ko na lang.
Yeah, just give us feedback on that, no? Because if you look at where we are right now, no, the reason why we're discussing this bill is because of the pandemic. And during the pandemic, the local governments were mobilized to prevent and to treat those who were affected and to prevent the spread of the pandemic. But we're now, I would say, we're in the post-pandemic stage. And one of the biggest casualties of the pandemic is education. And I'm thinking of employing the same strategy during the pandemic, wherein the local government units were mobilized. No? Yung local government units naman talaga ang naggumalaw. No? So the same philosophy, I think using the local government units is very effective. Because on the ground sila. So using the same, you have to treat this as a post-pandemic issue. And we can use the local government units, mobilize them again to address this post-pandemic problem. That's the philosophy out of it. And of course, the ILG is the only one who can mobilize them.
We'll coordinate, Your Honor, with the
Sige, thank you. Please consult Secretary Abalos on that concept. He will understand, Mayor rin yun eh. No, he will understand how the local government, the local chief executives can be a catalyst, to implement academic recovery programs.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. The next will be PIDS is here, so we'll call on PIDS.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Thank you for inviting PIDS in this session about learning recovery program. Actually, the learning recovery programs are highly recommended by many studies and many international organizations, given the projected large global learning losses because of the pandemic and many schools shifting to remote learning. So in the Philippines, we had one of the longest closures to face-to-face learning. So it is expected that learning losses are going to be quite large, as estimated by our companions, from NEDA. Now, aside from those learning losses, even before the pandemic, there's already a huge gap in the performance of the low-income students and the high-income students. And that's reflected already in the PISA 2018 and the TEAMS 2019. So the learning recovery program, like remedial instruction, will not just be helpful in mitigating these learning losses, but also narrowing that gap in student learning levels across students. So it will be helpful in a learning recovery program as recommended by international organizations to really assess what are the starting points of each student so that the learning needs of each student is addressed. Now, why would there be why would the gap be large, will be become worsen during the pandemic? Now, for one, there's a digital divide. For another, their effective learning resources are not quite accessible to low-income households, like suitable gadgets for remote learning. And then also the quality of home support. Now, there's a study in the PIDS wherein in low-income households, the parents have the greater tendency to be away from home. So there's a limited support that they can give. And as well as in low-income households, the parents only tend to have less high school education. So that limits their contribution to the home support that parents or the guardians can give to the children. Now, when it comes to so we are in support of this learning recovery program, as I've said, not just to mitigate the learning losses, but to narrow down that gap. When it comes to resources, there's a PIDS study, a policy note in 2019, now wherein teachers are already overworked, particularly public school teachers. So the public school teachers are also part of this remedial instruction of this bill. So adding that task of conducting remedial classes would really burn out the teachers. So we think that it would be helpful, really helpful for the teachers, that it will be offloaded of these non-teaching tasks, including administrative tasks. For another, there's a recent PIDS study published in August 2022 by Dr. Orbeta and Dr. Paqueo that noted that in the PISA 2018, among the participating countries, the Philippines had one of the longest learning times, but that did not translate to good good assessment scores as we've seen in the results of the PISA 2018. So that suggests that there's a need to review how learning time is utilized. So that's where educators educators, experienced instructors to formulate how to rationalize instruction time. And then for another, I mentioned the digital divide. Part of the in the bill, it's mentioned that one of the modes that will be used would be online learning. No, unfortunately, online learning is not cannot be availed of the majority of the students. According to the DICT, in the national international survey, only roughly less than 20% of household only had access to the internet. So that limits the accessibility of online learning as remedial classes for the students, especially for low-income students and for the poorer and rural regions, which in the first place lack the digital infrastructure for internet to be accessible for them. And even if internet is infrastructure is available in these areas, the high costs of the internet prevent as the survey of the DICT had noted in 2019 is the high cost no prevent households from having access to the internet. So when it comes to remedial programs, it will really demand a lot of resources, human resources, especially if the target is to have smaller groups to really address the learning needs of the students. So we need to also take into account that the learning levels of students are different. So their starting points are different. So it's better to group them in smaller groups. But then that will, as I've said, that will require a lot of human resources. And then we also see that as children get older, in the in the annual poverty indicator survey, we see that one of the reasons why children do not attend school is the lack of interest. And one of the reasons no, why children lack interest in studies is that they don't, as they progress to different grades and they don't understand, they don't gain the competencies that just parang yung mga estudyante would rather drop out because they're not really progressing in their studies, no, even if they are getting promoted to higher grade level. So just some of the things no that can be considered for this learning recovery program. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, ma'am. We call on Unicef as well, Mr. Nicolas Tenazas. You're on mute, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you for inviting UNICEF. First of all, sir, we would like to note that the proposed bill is well in line with our rapid framework. As you know, when we were doing the briefing notes for VP Sara a couple of weeks ago, we were using the framework of developed by UNICEF, World Bank, and UNESCO, the rapid framework, which stands for reach every child, assess learning levels regularly, prioritize teaching the fundamentals, increase the efficiency of instruction, and develop psychosocial health and well-being. Having said that, sir, we have other comments to the bill. First of all is to really identify what assessment tool to use, because the current DepEd assessment framework has different levels of assessment. Some are diagnostic, some are classroom level, some are standardized, some are not. So we need to clarify which ones we want to use. And then also for the identification of the learners, being UNICEF, we are very concerned about the possible negative connotation that students might feel if they are singled out for remediation, or they are identified as low learners. We want to highlight that as well. And then also, if there are also resources, we would also like to propose looking for those who still have not come back. So that's part of the some of the provisions of the bill. So we look forward to helping you develop further the provisions. And then also we want to highlight, sir, that for kinder students, there is a tool used by the ECCD Council, which identifies developmental delays. So when they come to kinder and grade 1, some of them might already be assessed when they were in daycare centers or in child development centers. So it's also good to identify them. And then another point, sir, would be in terms of older students also. Past few years, we keep on hearing about the wrong interpretation of No Child Left Behind, wherein even if the child is not really at par in terms of the standards, we some teachers they promote them to the next grade level. So the result is that they reach higher grade levels even without learning the fundamentals. And then in terms of a possible tutor, sir, first point would be to maybe not include the current teacher as the tutor for two reasons. Number one, they are already overworked. But number two, sir, they are the same people that are teaching the same students. So if there are some issues in the classroom that might be leading to poor learning, we might be perpetuating this we might just be repeating this in the tutoring session. So alternatively, sir, we would suggest what you mentioned, para teachers. And then also, sir, there are a lot of qualified teacher applicants in the Department of Education just waiting for their position. So we can tap them as well. And even, sir, if you want to go so far as to also consider even the retired teachers. Many of the retired teachers have been schooled differently and they have focused on learning and literacy. So we want to maximize their presence as well. And then not lastly, but another additional source of tutors, sir, would be students in teacher education institutions, all of them. If they can be included in the curriculum, I mean this program can be included in their curriculum, wherein they are able to gain credits or units for this additional work. It might help increase the number of possible tutors. It can be called like an alternative laboratory. This would also help train our teacher education students in the realities on the ground so that they are not culture shocked when they graduate and then when they go to school, when they are finally deployed to the school. And then another comment, sir, would be to produce lesson exemplars, which is very, very critical. This would be like prototype lesson plans, which the tutors can use for the sessions. There might be different schools of thought on how to teach, beginning reading, mathematics, and even science. So it's good to also develop. In the bill, you mentioned learning materials. As part of them, sir, it might be good to consider developing lesson exemplars as well. And then towards the last, sir, we support, or we see this as an opportunity for genuine impact evaluation, sir. There are lots of think tanks in the education sector that will really help us do an honest to goodness evaluation of the program. And then One question, sir, on section 14 for the remediation. One question that we have is that will the grades in the remediation classes have an effect on the official grading system? This needs to be clarified because if it does, it will be high stakes. And if it becomes high stakes, then the incentives will change. There will be more pressure. There are tendencies for cheating. There are tendencies to shy away from this one if this becomes high stakes. But there are also benefits, but we need to discuss that further. And then in terms of expenses, sir, if we are going to do this outside school hours and during weekends, maybe we also consider the expenses of the students and the parents for this program. So we can help you also estimate the unit cost for the appropriate number of students per tutors. We can provide you that assistance. What's critical, sir, is that, for example, you were talking about the budget earlier. It's critical, sir, that the budget is in the form of MOOE, and then this MOOE is easily dispersible to these possible tutors, so that it will really be a national program without much lag. And then lastly, sir, we saw that you had like some provisions for parents. Um, Sir, sometimes we also need to teach the parents not just how to teach their kids, but also the basic competencies as well, because the reluctance to teach their kids comes from the fact that they don't know the lesson as well. So we need to incorporate that so that they will be more confident. Teaching in grade 1, grade 2 can be done by almost everybody, but when you get to grade 4, grade 5, grade 6 already, the lessons become more technical, and parents tend to shy away and tend to just feel that my kid can handle this, let them do it. And then lastly, sir, it's good to mention directly in the bill the big role that DILG will play, also the local school boards. With the Mandanas ruling, maybe, but even in their overall general budget, the local school boards have a big role to play in terms of operationalizing the objectives of the ARAL program. So that's all from our end, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki, and thank you very much for those great suggestions. Uh, Please, if you don't mind, please reduce it to a position paper. We'd like to capture uh, all or most of your recommendations earlier, especially on the role of the LG and the local school board. You're absolutely correct in that. And thank you for those good suggestions. I have a few questions. One is on best practices globally, no, and UNICEF, since it is a global organization, what are the best practices have you seen, no, insofar as um, academic recovery is concerned, and are there best practices that we can apply here and embed in the law so that no, it will be more effective?
Sir, we can give you a list of some of the countries with their programs. We can give you like a full list, but the main common characteristic there is that it's part of the overall schooling experience. It's not a full-blown separate activity. The opposite side of the spectrum, sir, for example, you know about the challenges in Japan and in Korea, for example, wherein kids have like 14-hour days so that they keep on learning. They get ahead of their peers. So we don't want it to be a high stakes competition or a high pressure situation. We want it to be part of the overall schooling experience. That's the main thing, sir. And then it also has to consider the health and well-being of the kids. So, for example, if we do this every Saturday, this is usually time for rest or play. That's the concern that we have. If we might find time to different schedule or think about it more, then it would definitely go hand in hand in terms of the academic well-being, academic improvements, and then the emotional or mental well-being of the students as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, please provide us with some best practices. But do you have any top of mind? Like, for example, what country should we emulate? Just a quick top of mind that you've seen that it's effective. It's cost. Of course, if you pattern it after the U.S., it's almost impossible for us to emulate because of the budgetary requirements. But maybe in some developing nation that are similar to us.
Yes,
Any
sir.
top
So
of mind?
we'll have to contextualize, sir, because some of the very good practices definitely are among the developed countries. We have Australia, and then we have the Nordic countries also, sir. I'm pretty sure you're well aware of the Nordic education system, wherein it's not all about academics. Actually, the Nordic education system, they don't really have they don't really put enough focus on PISA and TIMSS anymore because of the kind of education system they have. So we'll look for comparable programs, and then we can submit to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Nikki. Next will be the ICT. Any comments on the bill?
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, magandang hapon po.
Magandang hapon.
Sir, the DICT signifies its support to the bill to make up for the learning loss, especially for our kids. Our official comments, however, Mr. Chair, shall be forwarded to your office as soon as this is signed or approved by the DICT Secretary. But initially, Mr. Chair, allow me to convey some of our thoughts regarding the bill regarding what are the DICT initiatives in relation to the bill. Currently, sir, the DICT develops or implements ICT capacity training. Now, sir, in collaboration with the Department of Education, we can actually identify ICT trainings that would be needed by the teachers or even by the tutors or even by our learners. Now, for online access, I think this was mentioned a while ago, Mr. Chair, that most of our households, if I'm not mistaken, 82% of our household does not have internet access. Now, to address this concern or to address this challenge, Mr. Chair, we have what we call the Tech for Ed centers. Now, these Tech for Ed centers, we have facilities, we have ICT equipment, these are all online, and this can be used by our teachers for conducting, or the tutors for conducting online tutorial services, or even for our or even for our students that they can use this for online learning, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for the statement of support. There's a provision here that is very important, no? And it might also be controversial. Is Section 15 on, and let me just read it, no? Public telecommunication entities are mandated to provide free access to all of DepEd's learning platforms. Nasaan yung bill?
Section 15, Mr. Chair. Yes, po.
Yeah. Let me just read it, no? Public telecommunications shall provide free access to all DepEd's learning platforms, including online education platforms, digital libraries, and other online knowledge hubs without any additional financial burden on learners and tutors. And it goes on. No? Is this possible? I know that during the pandemic, some of the PTEs, as part of their CSR, gave DepEd free access to bandwidth, free access to some of their services, no, during the pandemic. I'm not very sure if that is still around right now. But on Section 15, no, this is to lower down cost for both learners and teachers and the tutors, no? Especially when we roll this out, we're talking about millions of tutors. Is this possible, and can DICT mandate the implementation of this provision?
Mr. Chair, apologies, Mr. Chair, since I'm not really into handling policies when it comes to telecommunications. I'm actually handling capacity building, Mr. Chair. Can we just submit to you our comments on Section 15? Our comments would be included in the letter that we're going to send to your office, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, that's one of the most important provisions for the ICT, no? And
Yes, Mr. Chair.
of course, I want to be fair and also rational, no?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Insofar as requiring PTEs. But the objective of this section is to lower down cost, no?
Yes.
And the objective here is to deliver materials as fast as possible to tutors, no? If that is also a mode. So this is I understand, and earlier some of the resource persons were voiced out that I think it was PIDS that online learning or via internet is not feasible for those who don't have internet access. You said 82%, no?
Yes,
So
yes, Mr.
it
Chair.
might also be not feasible for academic recovery purposes, but we just want to give that option to DepEd if they want to launch a nationwide academic recovery program simultaneously, because time is of the essence. This academic recovery is actually time bound. No, we have to do it yesterday. No,
Yes.
and we're talking about 23 million learners, potentially 1 million NSTP tutors. So we have to simultaneously roll out the materials, simultaneously give the tutors access to training, access to materials. So the fastest way is to use the internet. No? So that's the logic why we put it here. Now, the question is this practical? Is this also feasible? No, because it will incur cost. And we didn't invite, in-invite ba natin mga PTEs? No, wala. We didn't invite the PTEs, but since the ICT is the regulator of the PTEs, please give us your comment, no? If on this section 15. This is a section dedicated to dedicated to the implementation within the within the ambit of the ICT. No?
Okay, that is noted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. And lastly, of course, everyone's favorite, the DBM. And this bill has an appropriations provisions, and we would like to get the comment from DBM regarding this appropriation.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, and to those in this meeting. Thank you for inviting us. We have not yet submitted the official position paper of the DBM, but we will submit it as soon as we have finalized it and signed by the Secretary. Sir, we recognize the intention of the bill to ensure that learners are provided optimal instructional time to ensure mastery of essential competencies to make up for such learning loss. So may we focus, Mr. Chair, our comments for now on sections 17 and 24 of the bill. So that is for the remuneration of teachers and para-teachers who serve as tutors, and section 24 on the appropriations provision. Initially, sir, we noted that the teachers and para-teachers under the bill may be private individuals. So under section 17 of the bill, it provides that teachers who serves as tutors shall be compensated subject to the existing rules and regulations of the DepEd and DBM, while the para-teachers who serves as tutors shall be compensated from the DepEd budget and the Special Education Fund of the LGUs concerned. May we note, sir, that for teachers who are teaching in DepEd schools, if the bill intends to consider the tutorial sessions as actual classroom teaching, the teachers may be paid honoraria pursuant to the Magna Carta for Public School Teachers. So, Mr. Chair, we suggest that the bill clarify and be explicit about it, whether the tutorial sessions shall be considered as actual classroom teaching. And for teachers and para-teachers who are private individuals to be hired as tutors by DepEd and to be funded from the budget of DepEd, this will be subject to the existing policy of hiring under the contract of service, which this is to be funded from the MOOE of the DepEd. On the other hand, sir, for those to be funded from the SEF, may we emphasize that the SEF is a public fund of LGUs, which is primarily intended to augment and support the supplementary budgetary needs of public basic education, schools, and learning centers in the country. As earlier mentioned by our colleague from the DILG, under the DepEd DBM DILG Joint Circular Number 2, Series of 2020, which is in clarification to DepEd DBM DILG Joint Circular Number 1, Series of 2017, the revised guidelines on the use of SEF, the SEF may be used to cover payment of honoraria and allowances of locally hired personnel and qualified tutors or learning facilitators. So, sir, in that case, the use of DepEd is subject to the approval of local school board of the LGUs concerned. For Section 24 of the bill, sir, the appropriations provision stated that an amount of 20 billion for the implementation of the act shall be charged against the current appropriations of the DepEd. May we mention, sir, that earmarking of specific amounts in a legislative measure is inconsistent with the budget process, as well as legislative function of budget authorization through the enactment of an appropriation, such as the General Appropriations Act. As a policy po, funding of programs and projects should be subject to the usual budgeting process and congressional authorization, which takes into account the availability of resources, the estimated funding requirements versus the expected outputs and outcomes, and the annual budgetary framework and priorities of the government. In this case, Mr. Chair, we suggest to delete the phrase specifying a specific amount of 20 billion po. And to be consistent with Section 17 of the bill, to mention also in the appropriations provision that SEF is a fund source for those hired by the LGUs. So that's our comments for now, Mr. Chair, and we will submit the official DBM position paper as soon as it's approved by the Secretary po.
Thank you. Why are you suggesting to delete SEF? But the SEF is an authorization on section 17. This is to authorize the use of SEF.
Sir, we do not suggest to delete the use of SEF. We just emphasize po that the SEF may be used for locally hired personnel and qualified tutors. So in that case po, it will be subject to the approval of the local school board of the LGUs concerned. Kaya po dun sa section 24 po, sir, nung bill, we suggest to also include or mention the SEF as fund source para po sa mga locally hired ng LGUs na tutors po.
Okay, I get it. All right. All right. Yeah, it's important to mention the SEF, so we are authorizing the local school board to use it for this purpose. All right. Okay, thank you. Thank you. And we'll wait for your position paper because we want to read the technicalities. A lot of the comments mentioned are technicalities that we need to specify in the bill. So thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you din po.
And then we call on DepEd ICTS Group, Mr. Encarnacion Escuadro. Any comments? Mr. Escuadro, go ahead.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead, ma'am.
Currently, we are taking note of all the suggestions that was given by the other government agencies and offices that was recommended, and we I think it was LLO who also submitted the position paper for the Department of Education.
Go ahead, ma'am. What any comments po?
Good afternoon. Right now, we do not have any comments, sir.
All right. Yeah, just consolidate your comments with the other DepEd group para isa na lang isang position paper. All right. I've exhausted all of our resource persons. Any more comments from the body regarding the bill? Anything that you want to put on record? Anything that you want us to take note from DepEd? Yes, Nikki, go ahead.
Senator, I forgot to mention, DepEd has been implementing alternative delivery modes since before pa, sir. Ang nangyayari po, sometimes children of higher age, they become yung kuya or the tutor of the lower age students. So parang medyo less threatening. Sometimes po included din po yung parents and other community members. But peer-to-peer tutoring pwede din po, sir, yung medyo advanced ng konti. Tapos tapos yung medyo nangangailangan ng tulong. So pwede pong multi-stage yung program, sir. Pwede pong sa simula meron po talagang expert na tuturo, and then parang discussion class, pwede pong students na lang internally. Tapos pwede rin pong from higher grade or yung kasama nila. So all of these, sir, we are open to exploring, helping you parang detail them para po sa operationalization na, sir. Thank you po.
Thank you. Thank you for those suggestions. Any more comments from the body? So hearing none, I thank everyone for their contribution to this very important bill. Indeed, this is a bill that will help our learners cope up with the impact of the pandemic. It should have been implemented yesterday, but obviously we need to prepare for such a big endeavor. And the benefit of legislating this is we can also tap the other agencies, such as CHED, the other volunteers to help out in the intervention program. We owe this to our students. Our students, they might not exhibit it, because normally kids will not exhibit their experiences, but definitely if you look at the assessments conducted, a lot of our students regressed. A lot of our students did not learn, and a lot of our students are experiencing difficulty in their academics. My fear is if this will continue, they will drop out. And we've already won the battle in terms of dropout because of the 4 Ps program. But my fear is the dropout problems might recur because of this 2-year school closure. But the hope is not lost. No, we have a chance to launch a very ambitious and wide, far-reaching intervention program through this ARAL bill, and I thank you for participating and being part of this very important step. The next will be the technical working group. It will be scheduled on September 13, 10 a.m. And I am encouraging everyone to join us. This will be the nitty-gritty of the bill. We'll be discussing the bill line by line. And before that, please submit to us your position paper. Hopefully, you can submit to us your position paper before Friday, which is September 9. No? So that we can take note of your recommendation. So this is a work in progress. We're still developing this bill. So feel free to suggest to us concepts that you want us to include in the bill. So with that, maraming salamat po. Thank you very much for your time. I thank everyone for sparing us a bit of your time. But that little bit of your time will go a long way in terms of helping out our learners. Maraming salamat po. So this meeting is adjourned.